Our speaker today is Tigran, and Tigran is going to be sharing with us a very interesting topic. He's going to be speaking with us on social engineering. Tigran is an incident handler at a large technology firm. He's an alumnus of the Advanced Practical Social Engineering course taught by Social Engineer Inc. And he's a student of multiple languages. He speaks fluently. I just shared with him a couple of words in different other languages, so he's fluent in other languages. And Tigran has a lot of experience in social engineering, cultures, social psychology, military tactics, and history. Tigran is also a fan of red teaming, digital reconnaissance, and social engineering concepts to conduct cyber threat hunting, and is passionate about emulating the adversary. So, Tigran, we are very happy to have you here and share with us your knowledge and experience. Thanks so much.
Thank you for the warm welcome, Dylan, and thank you, BSides Tampa, for giving me the opportunity to speak about this. Before I get started, I do want to ask a couple questions. How many of you here are students or trying to break into the field? Please raise your hands. I want to let you guys know that you are not alone at all, because I have been in your shoes, desperately trying to find a way to break in. But the beauty of this field is that you can create your own experience where other industries cannot. You cannot replicate working in an office on like financial spreadsheets on actual customer data, whereas in information security, you can recreate a home lab and build what others have done, and that counts as the experience. If you demonstrate that you know what you're talking about and go a deep dive, you will bypass a lot of the HR requirements, even on LinkedIn where you have independent malware analyst or researcher. That may be the break that you guys would like to get into this field. So with that, let's begin. So a little bit of what Dylan says. I am an incident handler at a large technology firm. Currently, I do threat hunting, but my love has always been with red teaming and social engineering, because ever since I was a child, there were some of these concepts really struck to me, but I didn't know them by their formal terms, but I did practice them. Like, for example, asking my parents, like, I want this, I want that, and seeing what works, what doesn't work. I'm sure all of you have at some point utilized this, but never knew that there was a formal meaning behind it or a formal term for it. But eventually, I just stumbled my way, because originally I was an international studies major, and then I realized there's cybersecurity. We grew up in technology, all these torrenting, all these technology aspects really paved the way. I said, I'll take a leap of faith and decide to study this. And so I went into it, and I haven't looked back since. I was also fortunate enough to be able to tie international relations with cybersecurity. So having two degrees as well as two disciplines that I truly love have really given me the momentum to move forward, even when there were difficult times at work and difficult times in life. Regular disclaimer, I'm not an expert by any stretch of this imagination. I'm just a very curious beginner. Any opinions offered are my opinion and mine alone, and do not reflect that of my employers. I also am a little biased because I did grow up exposed to multicultural environments, travel extensively as a child, and was very curious about things that even bored me, as well as things that inherently fascinated me. I do want to stress that these are not facts and not conclusions. Rather, I want this to evoke discussions and allow you, since happy hour is coming up, it would be a good time to practice potentially some of these concepts and stuff. So, one thing, who here has done social engineering engagements or assessments? Raise your hand. This slide is for you. So, I want to define the Renaissance approach. Is anyone familiar with what the Renaissance time period from history? Sir, what is the Renaissance time period? Please stand up and...
Very familiar with the definition of the Renaissance man. What's on all my marketing brochures.
Very good. And so in the spirit of that, I want to explain the process to which the Renaissance man or woman becomes that through the Renaissance approach. But to reiterate that definition for those that are unfamiliar, the definition of a Renaissance man or woman is a person who's well-educated and sophisticated and who has talent and knowledge in many different fields of study. A classical example is Leonardo da Vinci, who's an artist, scientist, musician, inventor, and writer, who famously wrote, "One should try to embrace all knowledge and develop their own capacities and capabilities as fully as possible." To tie that in, a little card from the Art of War strategy deck is this is one of the most important tools in a social engineer's arsenal. You ask questions and listens. People love to talk about themselves. And when you ask questions, so generally listen, the guard goes down slowly but surely, and then you get more in deep, more wrapped in tech. Like as when we talk about technical items of our work, be it internals, coding and stuff, it's very, very noticeable. The more we talk about it, the more absorbed we get into it, and the discussions can go on for hours and hours, potentially. For those that are social engineers, please do not do this with one vector. There's many vectors you can use, and the dangers of using one vector and charging in can lead to this. Complete wipeout during your engagements and not being able to get the target to get what information you need. Or anyone that you meet, in fact. If you're so focused on something, you'll wipe out. Who remembers this acronym from high school? World history or US Gov or European history? Anyone? Okay. So Persia, this was the acronym we learned for our AP exams. Politics, economics, religion, social, intellectual, area, or artistic. It depended on who was your instructor. And then near, geography options. These cover a wide span because somehow, some way, we've all studied a variety of these through a liberal arts education, be it in school or college. And it does give different perspectives when you're approaching problems. And when we had to analyze different questions on our examinations or when we went to different parts of the world during our travels. This is one of my personal favorite examples that exemplify the Renaissance approach. Who here is familiar with Grand Admiral Thrawn from Star Wars? Awesome. Respect. This quote, I think, encapsulates what it is to truly emulate the adversary. To defeat an enemy, you must know them. Not simply their battle tactics, but their history, philosophy, and art. Much like tactics, techniques, and procedures, you cannot change how you were raised and how you grew up. You will always emulate those patterns throughout your life. And that is one of the key points that Thrawn brings up, and a model for red teamers and social engineers. And now, to not let those that love Star Trek behind, I have to bring in Captain Picard as well. And for those that have followed his series for the next generation, he has shown different interests and pursuits, such as archaeology, music, philosophy, tea, history, and tactics, and he's employed them throughout 10 situations that he's faced. But we must leave the fictional and go into the non-fictional as well. Is anyone familiar with who this is? She is Orit Gadiesh. She is the chairwoman of Bain & Company, a strategy consulting firm, and she defined the end result of the Renaissance approach, which is known as the expert generalist. In her own words, an expert generalist is someone who has the ability and curiosity to master and collect expertise in many different disciplines, industries, skills, capabilities, countries, and topics. Sounds familiar? So these are some of the historic examples and current examples of expert generalists. Any of these names ring a bell aside from the historic ones? Yeah. Warren Buffett is one of the classic examples, but the person of interest that I do want to focus on specifically is his partner, which will be coming in the next slide. Charlie Munger. Not much is known about Charlie Munger, but that he's Warren Buffett's partner, and he studied a variety of disciplines. And that's microeconomics, psychology, law, mathematics, biology, and engineering, so that he can complement his investment strategies. And I did take a bunch of notes here that I do want to read from that exemplify his research and what he's concluded. He developed two types of models, a two-track analysis and the T-shaped individual. I do want to focus on the T-shaped individual first, and then we'll go into two-track analysis. So the T-shaped individual entails being an expert generalist allows individuals to quickly adapt to change. Research has shown that they see the world more accurately and make better future predictions because they are not as susceptible to biases and assumptions as others in one or two fields are. Having that breadth and width allows for someone to be able to make better non-biased opinions and predictions potentially. Second, they can come up with more breakthrough ideas because they pull insights that already work in one area into ones that haven't been tried yet. That is one of the most powerful. And during some of my social engineering engagements when I was on the red team, I found it worked. For example, on one company engagement, what I did was when I called the help desk and asked them, I started talking about, I want to go to this anime con in Baltimore. I want to do this and this. And the help desk person, she got all giddy because she loved anime as well. And we started talking about it instead of going through the proper security protocols. And eventually, after 3.5 hours, eventually she gave me the reset link and I was able to log in, get what I needed to do for the company, and then write my reports. But it's seeing things differently. The model, because anime itself is a very, very deep topic. It's so broad that there's so many different shows and interests of other people. And I was able to drill down deep, deep, deep by letting her talk more about it and ask questions per Sun Tzu's strategy and be able to guide to the point that there is no discomfort at all because I was accepted as normal because I got her. I understood. Third point, you're able to, this ties into what the story I just said, you're able to build deeper connections with people who are different than you are because of your understanding of their perspectives. And this is the crux of truly being a social engineer. If you cannot build these deep connections, you won't be able to succeed in engagements or even building friendships, relationships with family, friends, and romance. The final point from Munger is you're able to build more open networks. What I mean by open networks is it allows you to serve as a connector between people in different groups. According to network science research, having an open network is the #1 predictor of career success because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who's going to introduce you to someone that may be able to land you to that job or opportunity. Now I want to tie into his other model, the two-track analysis. So with the two-track analysis, it combines insights from psychology, neuroscience, and economics about the nature of human behavior. Now, the model instructs that when analyzing any situation in which decision-making by people is involved, one must consider two important tracks. How they would act if they behaved rationally, according to their true best interests. And number 2, how would they succumb to the pull of a number of irrational psychological biases that seem to be programmed into the human brain? With this in mind, Munger came up with a variety of rules regarded to this. And I will give a detailed example of how it relates in information security after going through them. The first important rule with the T model is learn multiple models. If you have only one or two that you're using, the nature of human psychology is such that you'll torture reality so it fits your models. For example, to the person with only a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. It's a disastrous way to think and a disastrous way to operate. Second rule from Munger. Learn multiple models from multiple disciplines. Models have to come from multiple disciplines because then you can see things in a different way. Who is familiar with the term or the phrase make it asymmetrical? Anyone? What does making it asymmetrical mean? Exactly. Stack advantages. Go use verticals that would not even be seen normally. For example, at job fairs, like not at your university, go to that university's job fair. Stack them. Like outside of what you would normally think, use things that don't see appearance because these barriers are there to test you. How badly you want something is truly the test that you can overcome anything that's thrown at you, especially for job hunting. From personal experience, I can testify to this. Because I went to another school's job fair to get my first job in information security and pretended I was a student there. So, of course, I had to copy my friend's badge and put my photo on, and they said, your number's not in the database. I was like, oh, no, don't you know about that database reboot they had to do? It was down for days. Like, oh, don't worry about it. Just go on in. So, making it asymmetrical. Munger's third rule. Focus on big ideas from the big disciplines. 20% of models create 80% of results. You may say, oh dear, this already is getting way too tough, but fortunately, it isn't that tough. Because 80 or 90 important models will carry about 90% of the freight in making you a worldly wise person. And only a small fraction of those are truly, truly in-depth. Like if you're doing quantum physics or astrophysics, then we're getting into a little more of a depth that might leave you a little bit, your brain fuses will be like, or along those lines. Munger's fourth rule. Use a checklist to ensure you are factoring in the right models. What this means is use a checklist to ensure you're getting all the main model points in what type of task that you're trying to accomplish. How can smart people be wrong? Well, the answer is that they don't take all the main models from psychology and use them as a checklist of reviewing outcomes in complex systems. One example would be Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Or if we want to use an information security version, the pyramid of pain. Anyone familiar with the pyramid of pain? Yeah. So for those that aren't aware, the pyramid of pain is specifically for threat hunting and incident response, saying how difficult it is to track an adversary based on certain rules. You can go from hashes and all the way to tactics, techniques, and procedures. Now, creating the last rule, number 5, create multiple checklists and use the right one for the situation, because there is no common theme amongst all of them and say, check off these 3 things in every situation and they will work every time. Now I want to take this in an information security route. Let's take the primary role. Information security is a wild field. Let's go with what everyone loves, red teaming. Now, for those that are in sysadmin in different areas, how would those complement red teaming? Show of hands, anyone? All right. So for those, let's take the primary part of the T as red teaming, the area of interest, and then your breadth of knowledge. How would the other areas of information technology and security complement red teaming as your primary focus? Sir? Yes. And the beauty of red teaming is that it combines 3 different vectors when you're truly incorporating that. It's the physical, like what does the site look like? What deterrents are there? Physical, doors, bolts, card keys. The second is the human approach. This is where the social engineering comes into play. And the third is the digital, the network, web app, wireless. So in essence, red teaming is already within a variety of disciplines within a T. So you have to use multiple models to be an effective red teamer. Benefits of the Renaissance approach. You can bluff more when you're challenged by security or by other employees, and you're able to create something from nothing. That is, being able to think quickly on the fly is one of the most important things, because sometimes during an engagement, like, it's normal to get scared. It's normal to be feared when you're confronted by an armed guard, but having very, very quick response and showing not too much discomfort, this only takes practice. But being able to say, like, I belong here, through your body language as well as what you're saying. That is the key point and what the Renaissance approach will allow you to do. The ability, as Tomohisa Ishikawa in his presentation at DEF CON 24 indicated, the ability to understand both cultures garners a deeper respect from the target towards the social engineer. If you understand the corporate policy as well as other aspects or where a person's background is from, like if you see something like anything they're wearing, be it a watch or something along those lines, like something they were wearing, or like Tampa Bay, like automatically gravitate towards the Bucks or any other sports team, it lowers the guard and they understand and they won't be as harsh towards other things. Sometimes it may not work and they got you good. But that's better for the organization you're assessing rather than escaping, because then they learn better. So this is more of the visual aspect that I wanted to indicate. Having all these different subjects and topics, like having read, even if they bore you, or even if you don't like them, having like a very, very broad understanding of them allows you to fit in multiple vectors within the primary aspects of phishing, vishing, and impersonation. Because if you're limited to 2 or 3 things, you'll run out of things very fast, because not everyone is going to connect with you. And the more you have, the likelihood of connecting with people that are not in your quote-unquote tribe increases, and can also increase the chances of a successful impersonation or vishing attack. Who is familiar with this bank heist from 2007? Does this ring any bells? Okay. Oop. In 2007, a mystery man burgled safety deposit boxes at an ABN AMRO bank in Belgium and stole about 120,000 carats worth of diamonds and other gems. His method of approach was he visited the bank during regular business hours. He overcame all the security mechanisms and walked right out the door with about about $27.9 million. And there was no technical vector involved at all. And he used his charm. And also, which wasn't mentioned, there was not exactly a way to explain it, but he also used the Renaissance approach to gain confidence. He was he was reported to have been very knowledgeable in a variety of languages and history, culture. He also had traveled the world extensively, and he also was very, very empathic and empathetic towards employees. He brought chocolates, personality, he was very nice. He was so nice, he eventually got the original set of keys to make the copies and got on information on what the diamonds were. And he has not been found to this day, and no, I'm not that person. These are just a few examples of the Renaissance approach. How you wish to pair your knowledge, it's truly up to you. Some topics complement each other's, others do not. And you might be able to thread off a couple of them when you're speaking to someone to build more rapport or build a friendship from there. But it's important to remember, when you connect with someone on multiple levels, it solidifies trust, authenticity you have with them because you get them. And that is the core for every close friendship that anyone can attest to, because they get you and you don't even have to question anything they have to say. I have some recommended reading for those that want to embark on the Renaissance approach. For those that won't read, I will read out the names of the books as well. This Town by Mark Leibovich, The Prince by Machiavelli. It's the core of social engineering, I would say, one of the core reads. The Nine by Jeffrey Toobin. I, Claudius by Robert Graves. Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin. Democracy in America by Alexis de Tocqueville. On the economics side, The Power Broker by Robert Caro. Titan, The Life of Rockefeller Sr. by Ron Chernoff. Freakonomics by Stephen Levitt. For religion, The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. The Art of Happiness in a Troubled World by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And Free to Choose by Milton Friedman. On the social side, Empire State of Mind by Zach O'Malley, Greenberg. Gender Roles, A Sociological Perspective by Linda L. Lindsay. I added a little bit of a twist for this one. I Will Fear No Evil by Robert Heinlein. Is anyone familiar with Robert Heinlein, the author? Awesome. He wrote Starship Troopers and Stranger in a Strange Land. So, had to throw that in there. That's it. The Smartest Kids in the World and How They Got That Way by Amanda Ripley. I, for Intellectual and Philosophy. The Republic by Plato, Symposium by Plato, City of God by Augustine, Animal Farm by George Orwell, and The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. And A, The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman, From Beirut to Jerusalem by Thomas Friedman, The Control of Nature by John McPhee, Full Circle by Michael Palin, from Monty Python. Here's some recommended podcasts that I listen to. The Art of Charm by AJ and Jordan Harbinger. The Social Engineer Podcast is run by Social Engineer Inc. It's Chris Hadnagy's team. Jocko Podcast. Anyone familiar with Jocko Willink? Excellent. Discipline does equal freedom. The TED Radio Hour. Stuff You Should Know, The Tim Fenris Show, and a personal favorite of mine called Unbreakable Podcast by Tom O'Shea. He's a former Navy SEAL. This for a wrap. To conclude, the Renaissance approach enables you to essentially become a human nMAP and on the road to becoming a lifelong expert generalist. It also helps you bridge cultural differences. You can create pretexts instantly on the spot with the breadth of knowledge that you ascertain and the models that you can utilize. And please just use it for good, just like the Force. Or else you're a dumpster fire driving in, and it leads to this. I deliberately kept it short because I know that I'm the one thing standing between you and dinner and happy hour. So this is my contact information. On Twitter, I am the SciFox. GitHub is the Red Corsair. My email is thescifox@protonmail.com. This concludes my presentation. Are there any questions? Sure. Yes, sir. The last part I didn't hear. I said use the models for all my assessments, or okay. So one instance was for a contracting company. It's the same one that I told deal with the help desk. That was one instance of it for one day. Another time I did the annual assessment for that firm was during the holidays. And one thing I did not know at the time was that they had been breached 2 weeks ago and they were already on high alert. And it was right during the Christmas season. So what I had to do was I had been on a call with several of them from my prior engagement. So what I did was I knew the person I was speaking with loved cars, especially classic American muscle. And they also liked craft beer, which kind of was cancel each other out because I would have thought Budweiser, Bud Light, like all the classic American beers for the classic American muscle cars. And I realized that he also was very, very impatient at times. So I started off being like, hey, I will call him John for this. Like, hey, John, I know that it's probably a rough time with Christmas and all, and that you're getting like plethora of calls from other people and employees, but I just want to let you know that I'm having some difficulty at home, and I wanted to be able to work on my new Yenko that I just bought. And he said, wait, you have a Yenko? I was like, yeah, I just got a refurbished one with what, 73? I was like, yeah, 73. And then he started going on, and he's venting. I was like, I can relate, man. I'm saving money to buy that as well. I was like, so what about this? And I started talking about the different parts of the Yenko, and we just kept drawing on and on and on and on. And usually what I drew out with the different topics, we started at American Muscle, we went to craft beer, we went to different, what are you watching on Netflix? We also went to vacation, potential, where do you want to go? Or like, what is your ambition? We went down very, very deep, and I was like, look, John, we can go on this all day. I promise when I'm back in the office, we'll sit and we'll continue this over lunch or that, but I do need help with my passwords and reset my account. And that eventually got, but that was about almost 2 hours later on the phone. But does that show a little bit more what you were asking? The recon was, I was given the website, the original website, and they said you needed to gain X, Y, and Z into the internal corporate intranet, and said this is all, we're just going to give you the domain. What I did was I researched the employees that were on the website through LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and forums that they had posted in, and I started developing a thread and a profile of them. And just for extra measure, even on the report, I added zodiac perspectives, like the cold reading astrology as well, and tried to thread it in. So, does that answer your question? All right. Sir?
Yeah, you mentioned that you, after a couple hours, you kind of change the subject and return back to your target.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you prevent yourself? What are some other ways you prevent being painted into a corner if you don't really know the subject as well?
I preface that when I know I'm entering a world which I'm not too thinking. As this, bear with me. I've just gotten into this. Like I validate myself by saying I'm not too knowledgeable on this, but the fact that I want to talk about it shows that it's my eagerness to learn about it, and I understand you. I want to understand you more without directly saying it, because it does sound awkward to say, I want to understand you more. Okay, back to you, Tom. Any more questions?
How did you connect your interpersonal relation
with this? So the funny thing is that there's a field called cyber threat intelligence where you're profiling different adversaries from different countries, and one of the languages which I studied is one of the biggest threat actors in the world. So I was able to say, wow, I studied that language and that culture, and now we're doing cyber warfare with them, unofficially. Sir? I like going, like when that's a good question. There are a variety. It depends on the occasion, but Instagram is my favorite because people love to hashtag their life, and it makes my life a little bit easier when I find stuff. Even on the instant response side, when I'm seeing potential cases come up and see this all started because of Instagram or all about Twitter, I was like, why? Just why? Make it private. Yes, basically, I like to believe that a picture is 1,000 words. We've potentially have heard that expression a while, and I do believe that is very true. Pictures may depict one way of someone's life or perspective, but I like to think that there are deeper meanings behind it as well. It's just one piece of the puzzle. It's not the entire piece, but it is a very important piece. Not just a gatekeeper. They could be just a simple employee inside. I can validate, hey, I know John X, or John Smith. Like, I know him. I've worked with him for a while here and there. And I haven't used it actively because a lot of my information I found through just like white pages, Instagram, Google Maps. I never had to do a deep dive where I use the developers tool, though. Not a problem. Anyone else? Sir?
Do you know what workflow you usually use when you're going to sit down and do an engagement, or do you just look at whatever you have and keep it digging until you get an idea of how you...
That's a good question, but I use both. Sometimes I use a workflow, and then other times I dig until I can find nothing more from my digging. But when I do that, I need to have more time than the scope that they want and the rules of engagement. So usually it's like a week or so when I was on the red team. But if I had more time, I would happily dig till the end of time and then craft the data from there, because when you have less of a time crunch, then there's no pressure at all, because the report does take the majority of the time. So I start with what they gave me, and I'm saying, okay, let's see what we got. So I would use a tool like Dirbuster, potentially, and then see where it goes from there. Basically, Dirbuster is the key. I want to see what directories are there from the technical side, but from an employee perspective, I start with their LinkedIn, and then go from there. And that's where I say go with the flow. It varies per person. What is available to me? And then I just ride the wave with that. I don't have a set methodology because sometimes it may not be applicable at that time. Does that answer your question? All right. Anyone else? Thank you all.